One of the leading experts in breathing research, Patrick McEwen, says that 75% of people with anxiety and panic issues have some dysfunctional breathing patterns. The good news is, by addressing these issues, you can significantly reduce or even become free of anxiety too. So what is the hidden link between breathing and anxiety that virtually no one's talking about? And how do we overcome it? Let's jump straight in. And I guess the first question to really nail down is, what specifically do we mean by dysfunctional breathing patterns? Well, breathing is supposed to be something that happens without thought, easily, and without tension. But people with dysfunctional breathing patterns often have certain breathing traits. They have a faster breathing rate than ideal. They do upper chest breathing rather than breathing gently but deeply from the belly. They likely have irregular breathing rhythms, swapping between fast and slow breathing rates. They tend to breathe harder, with more force and with more conscious awareness. And speaking of conscious awareness, they can often be overly aware, hyper-fixated on their breathing sensations. For some, it's like they've forgotten how to breathe automatically. But if you were playing devil's advocate, you could say, okay, so I breathe a little faster than others. I don't breathe maybe as deep as others. How is this an issue, and what's this got to do with anxiety? Isn't my anxiety a psychological issue? And that would be a good question. So let me introduce you to the term psychophysiology. Psycho referring to the mind and physiology referring to the body, this meat suit that we all have. So essentially it's a rather pompous way of saying the mind-body system. And your mind and body is so interconnected, they play together, they influence each other. They're like two people who are trying to copy each other and after a while forget who's bleeding who. So here's a quick example. Have you ever noticed that when you feel depressed or miserable, your physiology, your body changes? You likely slump your shoulders, you have a downward gaze, you have frown lines. Your state of mind and your mood is affecting your body. But if you take someone who's feeling pretty relaxed, happy and content and ask them to deliberately slump their shoulders, frown, look down, and adopt the position of feeling miserable, this would affect their psychological state and they'll start to feel miserable and depressed. And yes, you can try this for yourself. Sit up, put your shoulders back, smile, open your arms as though welcoming things in, and notice how that changes your feelings. Let me know in the comments what that did for you. The point is, though, that it works like a loop, and mind, body are affecting each other the whole time. So what relevance has this got with breathing and anxiety? Well, simply put, if a saber-toothed tiger were running towards you with a hungry look in its eyes, adrenaline would surge, your heart rate would increase, your breathing rate would increase, your breathing would likely become more irregular. You'd become aware of your heart pounding in your chest. You'd be breathing harder, and all this would happen in order to prepare your body to run away. In other words, all these breathing patterns are associated with there being a real and imminent threat. So if you've got into a pattern where you always have a tendency to breathe faster, harder, and so on, in just the same way that standing with your head down and shoulders slumped can cause you to feel depressed, this breathing pattern gets interpreted as there must be a threat. And therefore you continue to feel anxious and panicked. So you could approach this from two distinct angles. One, you could work on the psychology system and challenge your thinking and perception so that when you see there isn't a threat, your breathing rate begins to return to more relaxed, easeful breathing. Or you could deliberately practice better, more relaxed, easeful breathing patterns so that you're communicating, psychophysiologically speaking, that we are safe, that there is no threat. And it will literally alleviate anxiety symptoms. Can you see now how they're just so connected? So you may be saying, okay, fine, I get that, but how do I go about deliberately returning to restful and easy breathing? Well, in a moment, I'm going to reveal one of the biggest things that anxiety sufferers often do when it comes to breathing patterns. That when you stop doing this thing, it will give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of naturally returning to better, more relaxed breathing patterns over time. And the biggest culprit for causing overbreathing and dysfunctional patterns is being a mouth breather. Simply put, your nose is for breathing, your mouth is for eating, and never the other way around. I mean, you definitely wouldn't want to eat with your nose, right? But from a biological standpoint, the nose is designed for breathing, and it does a bunch of really clever things to make respiration easier, which means if you've gotten into the habit of using the mouth to breathe, you are likely missing out on the many benefits of nose breathing. And whilst there are too many to mention right now, I'll take 30 seconds and give you the main headlines on nose breathing benefits that we don't want you to miss out on. 1. The nose preheats the air and makes it more humid so that when it comes into the lungs, there is less lung shock, less chance of irritating the lungs from dry or cold air. 2. It's a top-end filtration system. Yes, the nasal hairs are catching dust and pollen, and your nasal mucus and cilia, smaller hair-like structures, they're trapping smaller particles and bacteria and viruses so they don't enter the lungs. 3. The nose produces nitric oxide, which is a gas that widens the blood vessels and improves circulation. 4. The nostrils are smaller than the mouth, which means it prevents you from overbreathing and triggering the physiology of fight or flight. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Needless to say, if you're breathing with your mouth, then you have a much higher chance of developing dysfunctional breathing patterns and therefore anxiety. So consciously practice nose breathing. Don't stress about it, but when your attention lands on your breathing, if you become aware that you are mouth breathing, just deliberately slow your breathing down and return to nose breathing. After a while, it does become second nature. Now, some people may really struggle to do this, and sometimes this can be due to overbreathing for too long, which can actually cause some biochemical changes, triggering an almost constant feeling like you can never get a full or satisfying breath in. This is something that I suffered from terribly when I was young, and it feels so physical, as though you can't breathe, as though you're suffocating. And it can feel so unpleasant that people start panicking and feeling anxious. I can't breathe. However, when getting it checked out, the doctors all say, you're fine, it's just anxiety. But actually, they're missing something important. They're missing the way in which the body does go through some physical changes which will make you more hypersensitive to carbon dioxide than you should be, which is what creates the feeling that you simply can't breathe. And if you want to understand how specifically this air hunger works, and a simple exercise to start your journey becoming free of this unpleasant symptom, then you can watch this video right here.